What's happening, big dogs? Back at you again with this week's episode of Market Watch Mondays. And, before we get into it, you know what time it is. First, we got to hit that intro.
Mm-hmm. 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 Mm-hmm.
All right. This week, we got football back, which is a huge plus, but a downside of getting football back is hearing about all the injuries during training camp. And man, there were a lot of them this week, and I want to focus on a key one and a key theme, which is going to revolve around the Kansas City Chief wide receivers. And obviously, in training camp this week, if you haven't heard already, Tyreek Hill went down with a lower body leg injury, and it turned out it was a minor hamstring injury. So, first of all, you got to be careful whenever people say a hamstring injury is minor, especially for these types of peak athletes that are performing at the upper echelon. And Tyreek Hill is the peak of the peak. He is one of one in the NFL in terms of his speed and what he brings to the game. And personally, I'm a little bit worried. And I think what this means for Tyreek Hill in redraft is he's going to bump him back a couple spots. He was originally my wide receiver one in Dynasty and also my wide receiver one in redraft. But I think given the injury concerns with his hamstring, which is easily re-aggravated, like soft tissue injuries are no fucking joke. Like they can get re-aggravated pretty easily during the season. So I think you got to move him behind guys like Devontae Adams, Michael Thomas, and potentially even that next tier of guys like Chris Godwin. But I think I still have him as my wide receiver three. But when push comes to shove, I'm probably going to click the button on a running back there anyways. So I think you got to be careful. Keep monitoring that situation, but recognize that the risk is there. But the reason why I want to bring back Tyreek Hill is because I want to talk about the stuff that's going on with Mecole Hardman. And look, it almost feels like deja vu to me because with every time Tyreek Hill goes down with an injury or there's some risk involved around him, potentially like last year when he was facing, charges in court, which obviously, didn't play out. But during that time, like Mecole Hardman peak hype is always tied the inverse of what Tyreek Hill does. And I think you got to really be careful with this. Okay. I put out a tweet this week and I said, you cannot handcuff wide receivers. Handcuffing wide receivers is not a thing because targets are earned by being a good player on the field. Just because the wide receiver in front of you goes down does not mean you're going to get targets because in order to get targets, you have to beat the opposing defender. And if you're not better than the opposing defender, you are not going to get targets. And by all accounts, Mecole Hardman has not proved that he is better than the opposing team's wide receiver. So I think Mecole Hardman's stock is going to shoot up as it always does during these times. And right on cue, like Twitter, a bunch of tweets came out and one guy came out, I think it was like John Daigle or something. He basically equated Mecole Hardman to a straight flush draw to the nuts on in poker. And as a poker player, that kind of like whenever I see someone put out a poker antidote and like completely misconstrue the accuracy of how it works, that like kind of throws me off. It's kind of like when I watched like Molly's Game. I love the movie, but like the inaccuracies of everything that happened in the movie was was a little bit tilting. And in this case, like I retweeted that tweet and I said, look, Mecole Hartman is more like a gut shot straight draw where like one of your outs is a dirty one to someone else's flush draw. So like even if you hit, you're not really winning. What's happening is you're probably going to get stacked and lose all your money. And that's really what Mecole Hardman is. Like his odds of hitting is very, very low. And I get it. People are really obsessed with his efficiency. I think it's just really dangerous when you project that type of efficiency, given he had so little volume. Like he had 42, I think it was 42 targets on the season, right? And 24 catches. You cannot project that out for any meaningful amount of volume. Like people are like, oh well, if Sammy Watkins leaves, if Sammy Watkins gets hurt, who also showed up on the injury report a little bit, and if Demarcus Robinson leaves and with Tyreek Hill out, then like Mecole Hardman's gonna be like a wide receiver one, and that's just not the case because he's not gonna get that volume. Like all those guys could be gone, and I bet you like Mecole Hardman still would not see 100 targets. But here's the more interesting thing, right? Like if you look at Hardman, people get excited about Tyreek Hill being out. Here are his splits with and without Tyreek Hill. He has 11 games with Tyreek Hill. He had 6 where he scored 6 PPR points per game, so basically nothing. In 4 games without Tyreek Hill, he scored 12 PPR points per game on 5.5 targets, 88 yards, and 0.5 touchdowns per game. And that would have been good for wide receiver 41. So people are getting all up in arms and all excited about a potential wide receiver 4 finish, right? And granted, I think he'll get better, right? I think he'll probably get more targets, and that wide receiver 41 is probably his floor. But his ceiling is not a wide receiver 2. His ceiling is not a wide receiver 1. It is most likely a wide receiver 3, and that's just not something to get excited about. So if you're able to take this news and sell um, and trade away Mecole Hardman for a second round pick in 2021, you could probably get a second round pick plus, or maybe you're able to sell him for like Preston Williams plus a pick. I would make all of those types of trades because this is a case where his value and his spike in value is driven completely off hype and is not based in any sort of evidence. Like wide receiver handcuffing is not a thing. And when I posted, I was actually surprised because a lot of people responded with like, Stephon Diggs and John Brown, Marvin Jones and Kenny Golladay, and those with the quarterback are stacks. Those are not handcuffs. Those guys have standalone value as is. A handcuff is someone that has no value without an injury, and Mecole Hardman certainly has no value without an injury. And even with an injury, his value is not that high. So I want you guys to really be careful and not buy into the hype of Mecole Hardman here, and really, really understand, like, fade the notion of handcuffing wide receivers. Just completely remove that from your mind. Handcuffing only applies to running back. So whenever you see someone talking about handcuffing a wide receiver, ignore. Like, do not take that, internalize that, and do not make any decisions off of that. Because I promise you this: if Tyreek Hill misses extended time, which it doesn't seem like he will, but let's say he re-injures that hamstring, which could be a likely outcome given how soft tissue injuries work, do not buy in on Mecole Hardman. What you want to do is buy in on Clyde Edwards-Helaire and buy in on Travis Kelce. Those three guys, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, those are the targets that you want to focus on in that Kansas Chiefs offense. And like, you do not want to go for the fourth or fifth options because those are not the ones that are going to give you meaningful advantage in terms of wins above average replacement. So that is something that I cannot stress enough. And like, I get a ton of pushback when I say it on Twitter because it's not popular. And like, everyone just really wants to hang on the efficiency of Hardman and all the things that he did that puts him in rare company from an efficiency perspective. But efficiency only matters once you cross a volume threshold. And so far, he has not crossed that threshold. And I do not foresee him crossing it for a long time. And he's one of those interesting cases where he's an excellent punt returner, obviously a phenomenal athlete, right? Just game breaking speed, but he's not someone that's going to provide you fantasy value. And I think the biggest telltale sign of this is, look, in his first year, people talk about, the upper echelon weapons that they have in the Kansas Chiefs, which is fair, right? They have Tyreek Hill and they have Travis Kelce, but no one expects Mecole Hardman to beat them. No one even expects Mecole Hardman to beat Sammy Watkins, even though Twitter constantly takes dumps and shits on Sammy Watkins as a talent. But he couldn't even beat out Demarcus Robinson, who's a journeyman Jag wide receiver, right? Like, Mecole Hardman could not beat those guys out, and he would have been out targeted by Damian Williams had Damian Williams played a full 16-game season. I think Damian Williams only had like 4 or 5 targets less than Mecole Hardman, and obviously he missed a bunch of games. So if he had played a full season, you'd be looking at the 6th most targeted guy on the offense. I've never seen a 6th most targeted guy on any team get as much hype and as much value bump and as much artificial value increase as Mecole Hardman. So if you can capitalize on this trend, we talk a lot about fundamental values on this channel, and this is the case where hype and irrational thought is the entire driving force behind Mecole Hardman's value. And in that instance, I believe, truly believe that his fundamental value is much lower than that. So over the long run, he's going to bounce back and fall to what he really is, which is just a fringe wide receiver 3-4 flex play. And that's how he should be valued. And if he's not being valued like that in your dynasty leagues, absolutely go out there and trade for him. And in redraft, he's a full fade. He's being drafted in like the single digit rounds. Let me just confirm that real quick. But Mecole Hardman is being drafted in like close to round 9 and 10. So that's not where you want to invest in Mecole Hardman, because that's where you can get guys who will actually produce for you. Guys like Golden Tate, guys like Julian Edelman, PPR monsters who will actually put up wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 weeks. Mecole Hardman is a full fade for me in every single format. Redraft, dynasty, I don't care what it is. If you have him, I urge you to try and explore some trade options to try and capitalize on the value, capitalize on the fear, capitalize on the false notion of wide receiver handcuffing, which is just an absolute pipe dream. And trust me when I say this, you do not want to invest in Mecole Hardman based on injury, because here's the thing, right? If you invest based on a wide receiver handcuff, that tells me that wide receiver wasn't good enough to get on the field on his own in the first place. What do you think is going to happen when the next draft class comes around? People are excited about Sammy Watkins leaving. Do you think the best pass offense in the NFL is just going to let Sammy Watkins leave and not replace him with any talent in one of the most top heavy and talented wide receiver drafts we've seen? They literally just spent the first round draft capital on a running back. On a running back. When you have Patrick Mahomes, you want to give him as many weapons as possible. And if the Chiefs place well again this year, it's going to be another late pick. And I could totally see them grabbing someone like one of my favorite players, Rondale Moore, grabbing Rashad Bateman, grabbing one of these other guys like Seth Williams, even a big body wide receivers, grabbing a De'Ami Brown, who's way better than Mecole Hardman as a prospect. Like, they're going to replenish that room. And if you're relying on injuries, not even one injury, people are relying on 1, 2, 3 injuries sometimes to have Mecole Hardman be relevant. If that's the path to relevancy, you just got to fade that right away, because they're always bringing in new talent. So if you're not talented, you're going to get replaced, especially at the wide receiver position, where targets are earned by talent and not through volume replacement through injury. So there's just so many question marks there. I think honestly, like in like 2 years, Mecole Hardman's going to be a droppable player in fantasy, because we're going to realize like this is a guy that gets, maybe 40, 50 touches a season and is just never going to start for you. And he's just going to either sit on your bench and rot, or you're going to drop him and get someone else with more upside. So trust me when I say this, I've never been more confident in another take. Like, my Mecole Hardman fade is probably my most confident fade, other than Mike Gesicki. Like, actually, I'm probably more confident in my Mecole Hardman fade than I am in my Mike Gesicki fade, and I'm very confident in my Mike Gesicki fade. So make sure you fade the noise. Make sure you fade the hype. Make sure you capitalize on the hype if you have Mecole Hardman on your teams. It's all about timing. It's all about realizing value in the fantasy stock market, which is what I'm here to help you navigate. All right, that's all for this week. Hope you guys found it helpful. Make sure you tune in again. You're gonna catch this Market Watch Monday tomorrow. I'm recording Sunday night right now, so you're gonna catch it on Monday. Make sure you catch the BBB weekly episode. That was a fun one I just did with Nick and Noah on Wednesday. You're gonna get the narrative as well, and then you're also going to get a Q&A this week, and then you're also going to get 5 Fact Fridays. So just loads of content. We're constantly grinding, pumping out content on the Bunkbed Breakdowns channel. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you give us a thumbs up. Appreciate it greatly. Make sure you drop in the comments, man. Like, talk some shit to me. I'll love to talk to you guys, talk football. I'll answer your questions. The bright side of being a small channel right now is you're going to get a ton of engagement from us, and we're going to try and address every question and comment that we can. So again, hope you enjoyed. That's this week's Market Watch Mondays, and we'll catch you next week.